Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Laura Kreuger with us, and Laura is a local girl, local person, and she grew up in Campbell and went through several iterations, and now she's in the famous property management world. So, Laura, it's great to have you. I just love to kind of hear how you went basically into looking at law and political science, and then you got into this famous world of real estate.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Well, I grew up in a real estate family. My grandfather actually started investing in real estate in the 60s. He thought the Bay Area was going to be a good market, and he was right. And then my dad continued to invest alongside my mom. But growing up, I had no interest in being in real estate at all. It seemed like a very boring profession, and I should put my mind elsewhere. So I was pretty dead set on going to law school, and so I went to Pepperdine and got my undergrad in poli sci. During that time, I interned and lived in DC on two different occasions. I worked at Georgetown Law, as well as the International Law Institute. And I graduated really young from undergrad because I had left high school early, as well as completed my undergrad in a really short period of time. And I had more than one bosses who had told me, "Hey, Laura, you're so young. If you graduate now and you study for the LSAT, you're going to, get into a good law school, then you're going to become, then you're going to be a junior associate, and all of a sudden you'll wake up and you'll be 35 or 40, and a huge amount of your life will have passed by. And did you even really want to be a lawyer? Because what do you really know when you're in your early 20s? You think you know it all, but life shows up differently. So believe it or not, I took their advice and I took a couple, I decided I would take a year or two off. And I had the opportunity during that time. I moved back home, and I started helping my parents out. They did all in-house property management for their portfolio. So they had quite a bit of real estate in the Bay Area, and mostly in residential, like the whole slew of residential from condos all the way up through multifamily. And I was aghast to see leases that had expired, maybe a decade before, and all sorts of things.
Oh, wow.
Wow, you guys are really underwater. They needed a lot of help. They didn't really believe in hiring employees. They tried to do it all in-house. My dad did the repairs and maintenance and such. So
Wow.
yeah, what became, or what was going to be a couple years off. Yeah, I haven't left, but here we are, so many years later. The leases are now all updated though, so don't, not to worry. We're much more organized than we were back in the day.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, and you instituted a much more professional approach to property management. You put in AppFolio as your property management software, and now it sounds like you have other employees also.
Yeah, yeah. Over the years, built a really wonderful team. Actually, probably one of the most fun parts of my job is working with a really incredible team, because we spend so much time at work. You better love the people that you're working with, and you better make it fun and have a good time, because if not, life goes by way too quickly.
Well, and property management is not the the easiest going business out there. So,
Yeah, I mean, so we all always did in-house property management, and for years, people would ask us if they, if we would manage for them, and I said, no, I never want to be a property manager for others, because nobody likes you, right? Like the tenants don't like you. They call you when there's problems, and you call them when it's time for a rent increase, and the owners don't love you because you're only calling them when they need to spend more money. Like it sounds like a horrible job, but yeah, I decided to go into property management actually in 2024. That's when I opened Asset Locale. I was just ending my executive MBA program from Santa Clara. And truth be told, property management is a really hard business. Like the margins are small. There's a huge amount of work. I mean, in California specifically, there's so much regulations. But I have a really incredible team, and we work really well together, and we do a really good job. And so when you have all of those pieces together, it's like, well, we built this, we can do it well for ourselves. So let's see if we can do it well for others. And then keep growing, and potentially in the future, Asset Locale will likely evolve to open syndications and other pieces. But the property management has to be dialed in because you can't make money in real estate if the property isn't managed well. There's just no way around it.
Oh, so true. And not only did you start doing third-party property management, but you also do short-term, mid-term rentals, which is a complete genre on its own. So,
Yeah, it is completely different. Long-term rentals, you're likely signing a lease and having a relationship for a year or more. But we also do short-term rental, and that's actually just a fluke. I kind of fell into that. I purchased a home when I moved back to the area, and it had a little ADU in the back. And I started renting it out long term. Had a good friend who told me that I should look into this thing called Airbnb. That was back in 2012. And so no one knew what that was. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was crazy because who comes to vacation in San Jose? Nobody does, right? Maybe visit grandma here or, but this isn't Hawaii, this isn't Santa Cruz, this isn't Tahoe. No one's going to want to come. But believe it or not, my friend said, "Hey, I'll rent the space from you for whatever price you're asking and let me sublease it." And he did, and he made twice as much as what I was making. I leased it to him for 2,000 a month. He made 4 grand. And I was like, wow, well, when you're wrong, you're wrong. So I had no idea. Good enough friend that said, okay, here, I'll give it back to you. Now you manage it and go change some of your other properties into short-term rental. But I mean, that was many years ago. And gosh, I don't know how many thousands of guests. Every once in a while, Airbnb will send me a message and say, you've welcomed over 8,000 guests or whatever. I mean, it's many, many reservations ago, and the market has changed. Airbnb's changed, but I mean, at the heart of it, San Jose is not really a vacation place, but we do have a huge demand for what I call like extended stays. So stays that are longer than 30 days, but typically less than a year. And the majority of people that we host in our listings are business travelers, and they're going to stay about 3 or 4 months. So it's a niche market here, very different. We have had properties in Colorado, Hawaii, we have some in Santa Cruz, very different market. But in San Jose, there is a thriving short-term rental market. But yeah, we manage both, which is also pretty crazy because short-term rental management, is really is a 24/7 job because someone's always asking, what's the Wi-Fi password? How do I use the dishwasher? Can I have some more towels or blankets? It's a very high touch, um, management intensive, whereas long-term rental, you're really, leasing the property, getting somebody settled in, and then as long as the property is well maintained and there's not maintenance issues, you don't have as much hands-on management day in, day out.
so I'm curious in your kind of more remote areas like Vail and Hawaii, I assume you have a local maintenance team or cleaning team or something that kind of handles those properties.
Yeah, so we have even for San Jose, we outsource our cleaning because cleaning is a whole nother beast in and of itself. But for the properties that are farther away, yeah, we have a local partner. So we will connect with a local property manager. I like to do the management because I'm very opinionated because I have a lot of experience. So it's much much better for me to manage the calendar and the listing and the guest interaction. But yeah, if you have a electrical problem at 2 in the morning, I definitely can't show
Not
up.
going to go fix
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so we have like emergency on call and a partner that is local, and they can help facilitate those guest needs that come up every now and again, but not all the time.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, obviously Airbnb, that's the guess in a way from kind of past history and so forth. So I'm just curious how often you end up with a problem with a guest.
Yeah, believe it or not, not that many times. No different than long term. You read in the news about the like very 0.01% of the time that somebody, has a
Yeah.
crazy party or is squatting in a property or whatever. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
out of all of the tenants that we have for long term, I can count on one hand how many evictions we've had, and that's thousands of tenants. So that's very uncommon. And the same would be true. Every once in a while, every 10,000 guests, you're probably going to get something crazy. The standard, maybe you have a dirtier guest, you have a pet that comes and makes a mess. That happens every once in a while. But for the most part, no, people are respectful. Just like people, most people
Yeah.
are reasonable and respectful. And it's the small percentage that kind of ruin it for the rest of us and make the house rules extremely long and the contract, you know, tens of pages long for all of those what ifs, but not too much, not too bad.
Well, that's an interesting question. What happens in a midterm rental or even a short-term rental when you end up in an eviction situation? I mean, is it like a standard eviction?
Yeah, I mean, it really would depend on you know, your area because different cities have different regulations based on what constitutes short term or long term. But for the most part, any stay that's longer than 30 days, you're talking about a tenancy, right? So there you've established that tenancy relationship. Knock on wood, I haven't had an eviction for a short term rental,
Oh,
but
wow.
it would
Okay.
be a similar process, yeah, that you would go through to, follow the regulations, give them notice and ask them to leave. But
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of good. So I'm just curious, evictions in general, it sounds like you have done a few over the years, but not a whole lot. You generally vet people going in and hopefully that all works out so you don't have to go through an eviction process later on.
yeah, you do your due diligence, right? You have a really good stand, like, clarify what are your criteria of, credit score and income, all of the pieces that go into that and call references. You do the work and
Yeah. Yeah. And then hopefully you don't have to do the work later on because it's very painful to get somebody out.
for everybody involved. I don't want to kick anybody out, it's
Right.
not a nice thing to do. So,
No,
yeah.
it's not fun and it's long term and it's expensive, all those things. So,
Yep.
so I am curious. Airbnb actually has asked you to talk to them numerous times. So I'm very interested in what they like to know about your process or your property management approach.
Yeah, I've spoken there, I don't know, a handful of times. I'm going tomorrow actually, and I got asked again to go next month. So there's, kind of two different areas that they typically pick my brain on and they overlap a bit. I have about 20 listings, which is a niche, property manager. There are some people who have hundreds of listings and they're typically national or international property managers, and they really don't have a presence locally, right?
Mm,
So they're managing over multiple states and they may have local contacts like cleaners or
mm,
repair person, but they're not really inside the property and they charge a lower rate.
mm.
Typically, the quality is not there because you don't have that personal touch, right? And then, so that would be one extreme. And then there's the other side of it, which is more the mom and pop shop that they have maybe one property or two
Mm,
properties. Um, but that becomes very intensive just as we were talking about, you have to constantly be attached to your phone, if somebody needs extra towels. Yeah, like that's, you're going to get a call on Saturday afternoon when you're at your kid's soccer game and what are you going to do? So
yeah.
yeah, Airbnb has reached out to me before just to kind of pick my brain based on what, how I manage the property management side of the business. And most of the time when I go, I'm speaking with their employees to help them have a better insight on, okay, what does it look like to be a boutique property management owner, living locally, living, for the most part at the properties that I manage, in the area, probably within 20 minutes or so. How do I manage it with staff? How do I manage it myself? How am I contracting with cleaners? And then how am I keeping a really high quality for reviews and guest experience? Because as you scale, often the quality goes down. So what do I do differently, right, than what others potentially do to be able to keep that high quality? And how can they potentially support me because they know that high quality property managers are hard to come by. And we all win. If I can manage more properties well, they're going to have happier customers who are going to come back to Airbnb more. And it's just a really wonderful cycle that everybody improves upon. So,
So I'm curious, do you do any third-party short-term rentals, midterm rentals? The ones you have are all owned by your family, right?
I have nope, I have outside clients. I
Oh,
do
you
have
do?
hmm
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. All right. So that's interesting. So, okay. So going to your longer term rentals, your other properties, what's the current market looking like there? Are you high occupancy these days? Is it a robust market? What's the market looking like these days?
Yeah, I mean, we're very strategic with the way that we have our leases structured. And for the most part, people want to move in the summer months, right? Like if you don't have a family, it's easier to move when it's not raining, or it's not during holiday time. So we see that the market gets hotter May, June, July into August, which is consistent with the real estate sales market as well, right?
Mm.
Summer months
Right.
are busier for buying and selling. But if you do have a family, moving during the school year is really difficult, especially if you're trying to move locations in different school districts. It gets very complicated. So, for the most part, our team is very focused on leasing during the summer months, because that's when the market is the hottest. So, May 15th to about August 15th. And then, of course, we'll have some vacancies, some lease breakages throughout the year. But for the most part, I think we have maybe one vacancy right now from a lease breakage. But other than that, we're fully occupied. And looking forward to the summer months. It'll be busy, but the summer is historically the busiest time, and you get the highest revenue when you're
Yeah.
leasing in those months.
So
Mhm.
I'm curious, during those famous low interest rate years,
Yeah.
pre-COVID or post-COVID, did you have more activity at that time or less activity, or has it been pretty steady all the way through?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Right now, we're kind of seeing the whiplash of that I have owners who have properties that their interest rate is so low they can't decide if they want to hold on to it and rent it or sell it and get their equity out, right? It's like this
Yeah.
push-pull that's a struggle. I had a call with an owner this past week of like, shoot, do I want to give up 3%, on and get into something closer to 5 or 6? But as far as the rental market, I mean, everything was difficult during COVID because you couldn't interact with people, right? And we didn't have infrastructure, and we also didn't have the AI tools to very easily set up remote showings. So there is a difficulty of just getting people into units safely. And the same would be true of like at this point, if someone gives notice, we can be showing the property. Um, while they're there. But if you have an occupied property during COVID, you can't. So it was a different beast. I would definitely say it was a bit slower then just because of the logistics of things. And you had people moving out of the area, as well. We have some college rentals, like student rentals.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
challenging. Yeah, because if you're not on campus, you don't need a place to live. And then what do
Right.
you do, especially because you don't know when it's going to start, when school is going to start again, right? We all had this idea that it was like 2 more months or 3 more months. And it was like,
Right.
shoot, are we moving them in the fall? Are we moving them in January? Is it next year? So that was probably the biggest challenge. The standard, people need a place to live. The standard leases, you need a place to call home. Not too big of a challenge, but the student rentals were difficult.
So I'm curious, how are you using AI for showings?
Yeah, well, we're testing out an AI tool that, I mean, we just started working with them. It's Brickwise AI, in November, and they're building out, a specific tool for us. We're going to launch it so that tenant or prospective tenants have the option. Do you want an agent to meet you at the property and walk you through it for a vacant unit, of course? If it's
Yeah.
occupied unit, that would be a requirement. Or
Right.
do you want more flexibility for your time, with scheduling? And we could do what we would call a remote agent showing. So you would be
Oh,
able to get the keys and get access remotely, right? And the AI would be able to set up the appointment for you. And then at this point, we would have a real person, on the other side of the camera. So it'd be a FaceTime or a Zoom call to walk you through it. But it's a lot easier for me to have someone remote at 7 p.m. on a Thursday than to send someone out to a property. But the AI would be partnering specifically to get the appointment scheduled, to confirm the appointment, to make sure everything's set up securely for remote entry, those sort of things.
So you're not using the boxes that will allow somebody to go into a property for a short period of time and then tour it on their own and then come back out. You haven't used those?
Yeah, we have the option to use those boxes. We like the ones that are the actual lock, so the lock is going to lock and unlock, but some properties don't have that flexibility. It depends on the doors. Um,
Right.
but we've used both. You know, we have to continue to evolve and improve because if not, you're going to get left in the dust. So,
Wow, true. So how much AI are you using just in general for your business?
hmm.
A little bit.
Yeah, probably right now a little bit. We're trying to build it, right? I think the thing that's most exciting is that with so much regulation in yeah, rentals, it's great to have a bot that has all that information because it changes city by city, right? And then it changes throughout the year. So it's like, okay, if you're in Mountain View, you're going to have different regulations than if you're in San Jose, which will be different than Campbell. So that's a lot to keep in your mind, like to begin with. And then having a specific lease agreement. Did this person sign this lease agreement this year or was it last year's lease? So if you have an AI assistant that has all the knowledge of the local regulations, plus has all the knowledge from this specific lease agreement, using that as kind of your assistant or your partner, that's exciting for us, and that's what we're looking to lean into more because it just takes so much time in the research and cross-reference and pieces like that. So we're leaning into that. We're leaning into it for getting yeah, leasings like appointments scheduled, all of those tools. And then we're leaning into it for repairs and maintenance management because that's a huge
Really?
part of our business. Yeah, yeah, to just, you know, for example, let's say you're renting an apartment and all of a sudden the toaster doesn't work. Well, you know, you're going to call the property manager and you're going to put in a request for, you know, electrical problem. Well, is it the toaster? Did you trip the GFI? Did you trip the circuit breaker? You know, like, is there an outage in the area? Like, there could be a whole number of things that have nothing to do necessarily with the property manager
The
needing to
toaster.
send someone
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
Right.
it could just be your toaster stopped working. So
Right.
if we can have AI support to do like a little bit of triage checking, okay, let's go through these steps. We're using a new tool right now, and from the first month, they said that they've reduced the number of calls, like where a technician had to go to a property by 33%. That's
Wow.
amazing.
That's a big number.
Yeah, in 1 month. So you think about that for owners, that's dollars. And for tenants, that's also dollars, right? I don't really want to charge you however much to send somebody out to tell you it's your toaster, you know, but who's going to pay for me to say it's your toaster? You know, then I'm the bad guy again as the property manager, both sides. But if we can walk you through some troubleshooting and you realize that in 5 minutes or so, wonderful. Everybody's happy.
So is this coming out of Appfolio or where's the AI coming from for that particular part of it?
Yeah, for that particular part, we're trying Latchel, which is a third-party integration. We're also looking at Brickwise, building up kind of a bespoke option for us. And Appfolio, of course, has just rolled out their option for repairs and maintenance. So this is all, I mean, it's just one right after another. So it's like you have to pick your poison and see what you're going to dig into. It's definitely a heavy lift for the team to manage the rollout. And of course, you're also working with maintenance staff that they're really good at fixing things with their hands. They're not really good at using and learning new technology. So that there's some learning curve there, but I think overall it's worthwhile. I don't think you're going to be able to compete as a property manager or in the real estate or likely in any industry if you don't accept that AI is here. It's not going away. You know, how are you going to use it?
So just to kind of touch on the famous crystal ball momentarily, it sounds like you're pretty gung-ho about the future of your properties and property management, that you're going to stay at a high occupancy rate for a while. Any other thoughts in that kind of future world?
I mean, I think the Bay Area is a beautiful place to live. You know, as we talk about this, It's the winter, it's February, many people are snowed in, and here we are with sunshine outside. So I would say that being in this particular market, there are jobs here right now. And I mean, there's a lot of debate over how many jobs AI will create versus how many jobs AI will fill, right? And we
Right.
could talk till we're blue in the face, and neither one of us will know what will happen there. But I think you can also say you can look where the venture dollars have went for funding, and a significant amount has came to the Bay Area. So it has historically been a really good real estate market. The prices are high. There's really good talent here. And I don't see that changing right now. I think that there are other pockets of the country that are, building and being invested in. But I think we have something special in Silicon Valley, and a lot of it has to do with the people who are here and the talent that we attract. So,
Well, for our listeners, where can they get a hold of you, Laura?
yes, you can get a hold of me. If you want to get a hold of me directly, you can use my email, which is laura@assetlocale.com. You can go on our website, which is also assetlocale.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. All right. And your name under LinkedIn is?
Laura L. Kreuger.
Yeah,
Kreuger is spelled Kreuger.
perfect. All right. Well, I think there's a lot to be considered here, and I think people will be calling you.
I look forward to it. Thank you so
All
much for
right.
the
All right.
conversation.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.